Hey everyone, my name is Udit. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about Facebook's UX researcher interview process. At the end of this video, you should have a pretty good understanding of the process itself, what interviewers are looking for, and a couple of tips for each of these rounds. As a quick introduction, I am from Prepfully. We offer anonymous mock interviews with someone who's been in your target company and role, alongside a host of other interview prep services. In this context, got several Facebook UX researchers who've been helping candidates with mocks and advice, and who've also helped us put together relevant content, this video being an example of it. So, on to the interview itself. In a nutshell, there are 3 steps to the Facebook UX researcher interview. The first is a recruiter phone screen, the second is a phone screen with a Facebook UX researcher, and the third and final step is the onsite, or as these days, it's often a virtual onsite loop, which is 4 45-minute interviews in addition to lunch. Let's talk step 1 first, which is the recruiter phone interview. This usually happens online, it takes about 20 to 30 minutes, and your resume needs to have passed the filters to be invited for this. In this round, your recruiter is primarily trying to assess your experience as a UX researcher, how much of this experience is relevant to Facebook, as well as potentially your high-level cultural fit. Some tips for getting through this round. First, be super familiar with your past work. Make sure to have a project you can talk about from each of your previous roles. 2, organize your thoughts in advance around topics such as what your contribution was and the skills you acquired in accomplishing different goals. 3, keep your answers short and crisp. It's supposed to be a short round. 4th, have a very clear reason for why you're applying to Facebook, why you relate to their mission, as well as why you think you'd succeed there. And 5th, this round often starts with the old favorite, tell me about yourself, so it's useful to have a nice short introduction ready to roll with. Good, next up then is step 2, which is the UX researcher phone interview. This is typically a hybrid interview. It covers a lot of ground but doesn't go too deep into any one topic. Nearly all candidates in this round are asked to choose an app, and your interviewer will then pose a hypothetical question which you'd answer, and your interviewer would then ask you how will you navigate the research part of validating or invalidating your answer. You're expected to clarify and propose research questions. You're expected to scope things out and propose a plan, choose methods, and then validate the choices that you've made. Your interviewer will also likely explore how you might adapt this plan that you've put together given unexpected circumstances such as resourcing constraints or time constraints or maybe new information that arises. And the goal behind this exploration is to see how flexible you are and how creatively you can think your way out of the box. You'll also often be asked, what else could we do here, as kind of a forcing function for you to then evaluate and justify trade-offs between the methods you propose. So I've got 3 tips for this phone round. First, talk out loud, explain your reasoning. It helps your interviewer follow along, learn about your problem solving skills, but also clarify and course correct you through hints when needed. 2, listen for these hints. Your interviewer is often going to give you prompts to head in a certain direction, so then head in that direction. Their goal is to assess you across a range of things, so if they feel that they've covered something sufficiently, or if they feel you're taking too long on something, they're going to want to move on. Thirdly, practice how to be succinct with your thoughts and reasoning. Because as I mentioned earlier, you need to cover a really large amount of ground in this interview, so you don't want to let just one topic hijack the entire conversation. Record and time yourself, practice with friends, book a mock with a Facebook UX researcher on Prepfully to get this practice. But no matter what you do, make sure you nail down this ability to be super concise. Good. Let's assume you've now gotten through the phone screen and you're through to the third and final round, which is also the hardest one, the onsite. Sometimes the virtual onsite round. There are going to be 4 45-minute sections here. The first is a presentation, which then informs context for the next 3 45-minute interviews. Each of these will cover different things. The first covers your product sense skills, the second covers your research skills, and the third covers your collaboration and communication skills. There'll usually be a 30 to 45-minute lunch break in between with the UX researcher. This isn't an interview, but be on your best, obviously. I'm going to create deep dive videos for each of these different interview types and presentation. So for this video, I'll just be relatively high level and have a couple of tips for each. So first then, the presentation. This is going to be on one impactful research project that you've done in the past. My recommendation is ideally pick a topic that maps the work you did to actual product impact. If you've done primarily academic work or researched abstract topics, talk about those and how they could be applied to real world problems. This presentation is going to set the context for pretty much all remaining interviews, so it's really important to use it as an opportunity to present an array of skills and map these skills to how you'd succeed as a researcher at Facebook. Next then is the research skills interview. Your interviewers are looking for methodological expertise in this round. You're going to be asked several questions about your past work, but specifically what methods you considered and why you chose them. My tip for this interview is don't just talk about the methods, be very aware of the broader context in which research is done and in which you would have done research. For instance, you would likely have at some point made trade-offs based on time or resources. So talk about those. Like a good example of where you might change your methods to reflect constraints is, for instance, maybe you picked a quant survey to get an early signal around user sentiment regarding a change, rather than a set of user interviews, which would have given you more information but taken a lot more time to set up, maybe because there was an arbitrary restriction of 2 weeks by which you needed that data to inform priorities. So this is just one example. Pick an example that's relevant to your own background and experience. Next up then is product sense. In this interview, your interviewer is interested in how well you map your research skills to the business at hand. Are you aware of the problem you need to solve? Can you break it down into discrete components, which can then be possibly atomically researched? The trick here is to kind of think like a product manager. Think about the needs of a user, think about what hypotheses you'd have to solve user problems and how you would invalidate those. Finally, then there's the collaboration and communication interview. You're going to have a wide range of stakeholders at Facebook. So the question here is, how well could you potentially handle competing priorities? How well can you take ownership of a topic that isn't owned? Can you introspect on learnings? And can you thrive across a really wide range of work environments? So my tip for this is to be prepared for both the theoretical sort of question, like how would you handle situation XYZ, but also retrospective questions, like tell me about a time where you faced situation XYZ, because both of them reveal different ways of how you handled or would handle certain situations. Good, that's all for this guide then. So in a nutshell, 3 steps to cracking Facebook's UX researcher interview: the recruiter round, all about getting to know you; the phone interview with a UX researcher, covering the basics; and the onsite, which is going to dig really deep into pretty much all the skills you would need to be able to succeed. Once you feel ready for some practice, or if you just want a sense check of your preparation level, book an anonymous mock interview with a Facebook UX researcher on Prepfully. I've included a link in the description below. In addition, I'm also going to link to a bunch of other useful resources. There's a written guide that we've put together, which goes into a lot more depth. We've also got sample interview questions you could use for practice. And we've also started writing some blog posts on different components of the interview. So those are like deep dives. You could check those out too. If you have any follow-up questions about this interview, please feel free to ask in the comments below. And if you like this video, please don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks and good luck.
Thanks for watching the video. If you liked it, please subscribe. Our website is prepfully.com. We've got lots of interview questions there. You can also schedule a mock interview with one of our experts. You can find the link in the description below. All the best from us at Prepfully, and we hope you totally rock your interview.